Okay, so this is Allison here with the Greek and Christian podcast, and we're featuring a segment, hopefully each week. I don't know if we'll get enough interviews, but of a student. So we want to talk with Greek students across the country about their experiences of being a Christian in the Greek system. And so this week, I'm really excited to welcome Maddie. Hey, Maddie.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Maddie, tell us, where do you go to school?
I go to SDSU and I'm a Delta Gamma there.
Fun. So SDSU, for our audience, I think most people know, is in San Diego, California. Is that where you're from originally, or are you from, where's your hometown?
My hometown's back in Orange County, so just an hour and a half away. I live in San Juan Capistrano.
Nice. And what year in school are you?
I'm going into my senior year, and I've been a part of Greek IV since the very beginning. So since my freshman year, I've been to the weekly meetings, and now I'm on the leadership team.
Oh, very good. That's awesome. I'm going to ask you some questions about that as we get going. But before we get into that, this is just a for fun question. But one of my favorite things in college, and there were many, was, just going out to eat with my sisters, those late night, let's go get in the car and grab some food. And so where is your favorite place to eat, either on or near campus?
That's really hard. I think I'd have to say, and this is going to cause some competitiveness, is Senor Poncho's over Trujillo's for sure. Best Mexican on campus.
Well, good. I like that you have made your preference known. And, if you want to fight her, you can, fight her on it. So, but Maddie, I trust your expertise. Well, I'd love to hear, what is a favorite memory or moment that you have so far in DG, especially as a senior? I'm sure you have a lot of favorite moments and memories, but what's just one?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot. I'd have to say recruitment's always my favorite time of year at SDSU because you just get really close with your chapter. And I feel like that's where I've made some of my strongest friendships because you're all enduring such like a grueling week of talking to people all day. And that really bonds you. So I'd say that recruitment's always been a highlight in DG for me.
Nice. That's awesome. That's pretty good. So I'm not sure what episode we're going to put your interview in, but we do have a series on recruitment. So talking about all those wonderful moments, both from the P&M perspective and then, from active member perspective. So I always liked recruitment as well, even though it was pretty stressful. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about your faith. You mentioned Greek IV. So, Greek IV, this is our podcast. It's all about the intersection of being Greek and Christian. So I'd love to know, did you come to college following Jesus? And what has it been like for you to kind of figure out how your faith intersects with Greek life?
Yeah, definitely. So I was raised Catholic and I was baptized at an early age. So I always had that foundation of faith in my life. And there were a few really impactful experiences that led me towards wanting and desiring to pursue God. And I'd always felt really blessed and like God was present in my life, but it wasn't until I found Greek IV and came into college that I felt like I started to do a deeper investigation of really what that meant to me and kind of giving back to God in a way. So that's been my experience with it.
That's awesome. So it sounds like faith kind of came alive to you, through your experience with Greek InterVarsity. How did you first connect with Greek InterVarsity? How did you find out about it?
Yeah, definitely. So it was so random. I was just walking down my dorm hall and one of my good friends now, at the time I didn't know her that well, Cameron, was heading off to a Greek IV Greek gathering, which is like a big Bible study for a bunch of Greek chapters on campus. And I'd been wanting to get more involved in my faith. I hadn't really figured out how. All of high school, I was still kind of just in limbo, trying to figure out what I should do. And I just made that split-second decision to come with her, even though I barely even knew her, to go to Greek gathering. And I really felt the presence of the Lord that day and felt really inspired to get to know that community a little bit better. So that was my first interaction with it.
That's awesome. So, sometimes there's a stereotype within Greek life, and I think it can be like perpetrated by both like non-Greeks and Greeks, but this idea that like you can't be Christian and Greek, right? Like Christians can't have fun, Greeks don't care about spiritual things. So those two lives don't go together. So we kind of like to disprove that on the Greek and Christian podcast that you can be Greek and Christian. So I'd love to hear first, like, what has been the best thing about integrating your faith with Greek life, of being Greek and Christian?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the best thing is that Greek University really taught me that God will meet you where you're at. So no matter what your faith looks like right now, or whenever you're starting to get involved, it doesn't really matter. Like you could be totally all in, or you could have no clue what's going on as far as Jesus and God. And God will meet you as long as you make those little baby steps towards him. He'll totally meet you in a powerful way. And the more you take those little steps towards getting to know him better, the more you're going to be met. So I think that's been one of the greatest learning lessons I've had personally.
I love that. And I forgot to mention this, for our listeners who can't see our backgrounds. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, you can see mine. But I've decided to do a little virtual background. I am in a fraternity basement, is what this image was called on Google image search. I do not live in a fraternity basement. This is just where I am at. But I picked it because I feel like it's just kind of that quintessential image of like, you can be a Christian, you can experience the presence of God wherever you're at, even in a fraternity basement, even in your sorority living room. And those are some of my favorite moments, Maddie, when I was in college, of just those like late night spiritual conversations with my sorority sisters while we were brushing our teeth, getting ready for bed, or, when we were sitting, watching TV, watching The Bachelor in the living room, And so those are just my favorite places where those two things do intersect, the best of Greek life and the best of Christianity. So I'd love to know though, what's hard about it, because there are challenges. I think we'd be naive to just pretend like it's not difficult to be a Christian in college or to be a Christian in the Greek system. So I'd love to hear what's been hard about it for you.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say a big challenge I've had, and honestly all my life I've had, is just having a busy schedule and constantly getting involved in different things. There's a lot of distractions that can pull you away from being motivated to spend some time with God and really try and get yourself more invested. So I feel like that's been a big thing for me. And also when you don't feel like there's a strong community of Greeks that you're living around, that can be challenging too, because in that way you're kind of an outsider sometimes. So it can be hard to really sit down or like just get in that headspace of seeking out the Lord. So I feel like those have been challenges for me.
Absolutely. I think that piece of feeling alone or isolated can be really hard. And that's like a big reason why Greek IV exists, because we want Greek students to know that they're not alone in following Jesus and their Greek experience. You had mentioned that you're now in the leadership team for Greek InterVarsity. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what's your role in the leadership team?
Yeah. So I got involved with the leadership team last year, I think last spring. Yeah. We had our group meetings for like the on-ramp group is what we were calling it, for the students that were interested in leadership, but kind of testing the waters right before COVID hit. So I started going to those and was reading passages with the group. And I was honestly a little bit hesitant to join because I felt like a little bit underprepared, which has been kind of a struggle for me constantly. I felt like I wasn't used to going to church every week. I was faithful, but hadn't really put in a lot of effort in the past. So I wasn't sure that I could really lead people. I was like, really? But after talking to Melissa McCormick, which is our chapter leader, and reading a passage in Exodus specifically, I was motivated and felt like it was something that I could take on, because it really presents an opportunity for you that he thinks you can't do. So that was my experience with it. And ever since, I've been so grateful that I did. And I also kind of felt like I was going into it with really personal motivations. I kind of felt like this was my self-interest. I wanted to grow in my faith with God, but I wasn't sure that I was doing it to help others do that. And ever since, it's kind of spiraled into that.
Hmm.
I think that was another instance of God meeting me where I was at and really inspiring me to take on a more challenging role. And it's really rewarding.
That's awesome. I love that. I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, like I don't know if I'm qualified to be a leader because I don't have the experience or I'm, new in my faith or still growing. And I think just like you said, God meets us where we're at. And if he's inviting us into leadership, he'll equip us with what we need to lead and to help others experience him as well. So I love that. Well, I'd love to hear from you. What encouragement or advice do you have for other Greeks around the country who are trying to grow in their faith?
Yeah, I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give you from my own experiences is just really lean into your faith. Even in the most small ways can make a huge impact, whether you're just
Mm.
down the street and want to say a little blessing for someone in your head, or just practicing Christ-like compassion, thinking, what would Jesus do when you're interacting with others? Just those small little things can be really rewarding and fruitful. And change your perspective on things. So I'd say lean into it. Don't be too afraid. God will meet you where you're at.
I love it. That's so great. It's just, you're right. It's those daily small choices, to say yes to whatever God is doing in you, whether it's praying while you're walking somewhere on campus or, as you're walking around your sorority house. I love that. Well, last thing, I'd love to just give you opportunity. Do you have any shout outs you want to give? Anybody that you're like, oh, I want to say, hey, since you're on the podcast.
Definitely. Jesus, thank you. Love you. And then I would also say big thanks to my roommate Cameron, who got me involved in Greek IV that freshman year. Gabe and Sham, who were leaders in our chapter, they really inspired me to continue going and to get more involved. And Mary Diamond, she's been a big inspiration, even though she's graduating far away. She sent me like a book the other day and totally touched my heart. And pretty much everyone in our chapter that constantly is inspiring me to keep moving forward and keep the faith life alive. So yeah, lots of people to thank.
That's awesome, Maddie. I love it. Well, for those who are listening, if you heard Maddie's story and you're like, oh, I wish I had Greek IV on my campus, we want to help you do that. And so to help you get connected, you just need to go to greekiv.org and we have a contact card on the front page, fill it out, and we will get in touch with you. Again, that's greekiv.org. And then also follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with what we're doing. You can even just send us a DM. It's at Greek IV. If you want to be interviewed about your Greek experience on your campus, again, send us a DM on Instagram at Greek IV. And then, hey, if you want to keep up to date on SDSU, if you're a student at SDSU and you're curious about Greek IV, you can follow SDSU Greek IV on Instagram. But thank you so much for your time, Maddie. This was great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.